بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ما بعد. So last week we stopped and we completed the washing of the body in the book of Janazah, Kitab of Janazah. And we might only have maybe today, this class, we might finish next Friday. Because the book of Janazah is only a chapter. And this is a summarized book. And the way it's written and the way it's is for a specific reason, for it to be straight ahead and summarized, because this is a level 1 book. And it doesn't take, you gotta hit that button. It doesn't take, it's not a very extensive book, right? So it shouldn't take us that long to finish. And it's not, because it's only 6 pages itself. It's only 6 pages itself. So inshallah, we'll see what we get through today, and possibly the last class will be next week, possibly, depending on how much we cover today. And that will cover, we already covered the washing, and also the washing workshop, the clinic that was that we did here. I think it was in February, but it wasn't on the channel. It's on the YouTube. It's uploaded now. People was looking for it, but it's there now. Alhamdulillah. If a person wants to see like the detailed what we're doing in the book, if you want to see it in practice, that was done at the workshop or the clinic. So Tayyib, we start tonight with the section of wrapping the body. So the Musannif rahimahullah قال والسنة تكفين الرجل في 3 لفائف بيض بعد تبخيرها. The sunnah is recommended for the man to be wrapped in 3, let's say shrouds, as we say, 3 white shrouds after they have been, as he says, tabkhir. And I don't really know how you translate that, but I'm gonna look here in the translation. This is bukhur. How we burn like this? That's bukhur. So to firstly, you don't really put it on the clothes, but like what's the normal bukhur is, it just has to be put around the clothes. You know how sin is so strong? Yeah, that's all. You just smoke the air, smoke the atmosphere with it. But for clothing, you ain't gonna put the clothing on the fire. You can just hold it over it or hold the fire under it, and it's gonna stick into it. The sin is so strong, it stays in the garment. So a lot of times, if you go to somebody's house, like in Mecca, you go to somebody's house and they have people over, they'll pass the bukhur around the room. And people will take, they'll just, if it's close enough to you, the sin will stay, right? If they got on shimag, then they'll cover the shimag over it and hold it under the scarf. It'll stick in there, and then they'll pass it around. But sometimes when you come through the door, they'll sit it at the door and have you stand over it so it comes like under your throat and it sticks in your clothes. But the point here is to do that to the shroud that the person's going to be wrapped in first, so that the shroud has a nice smell to it. It says here, steam scented. How you translated it before? Steam scented, which is will be usually burned. Tell you. So now this has to do with the shrouding, the wrapping. He says, وَيُجْعَلْ حُنُوت فِي مَا بَيْنَهَا. Hunut is another type of scent that is to be put between how many for the man? 3. So between each layer, right, to put this scent, hunut. All of this in the person is what? They're dead. The person is dead. But the fact that they're dead, again, it doesn't mean we don't respect them and show honor for the Muslim, even after the death of a Muslim. So we're preparing the body, and now we prepare the shrouds so that the Muslim smells good. And we've already washed the body with some type of scent. And now when we wrap them, it also has another scent along with it. It says وَمِنْهُ, also with the hunut and cotton, بين الييه. And now this shows the specifics of wiping or cleaning or putting perfume on the body. It says the perfume, if you have the translation. This is on page 65. Some perfume, hanut, H-N-U-T is spelled here, should be applied to cotton and then placed between the buttocks, the openings of the face, like the eyes, the mouth, the nose, the ears, and the places that one prostrates upon, meaning his forehead, his hands, his knees, and the tips of his toes. So what happens? A person takes that scent on a cotton, on like a cotton ball, for example, and they rub it in those areas, all of those areas that he mentioned. The eyelids, the mouth, the faces of wujud, not in it. Of course, you're not doing anything around the areas in the faces. I'm sorry, the places where a person makes sajda. Whatever makes sajda, that we put it on those places also. طيب. Now he moves to how to wrap the body. Now, if the body is laying flat and you have 3 sheets, right? It's recommended to have 3 sheets, but we need at least how many? La. It's recommended we have 3, but we need 1. We definitely need 1 to cover the body completely. But 3 is recommended to have 3. So now the sheets are laid kind of like not evenly flat on top of each other, right? Not like this. If you wrap them flat on top of each other, you're going to wrap, right? And they're going to be even in the middle. But they're basically placed like this. One is on the bottom, the first one, and then the other one is a little off, right? So what happens when you wrap the first one? We got 3. You wrap the first one. Let's just say it comes here so that they're overlapping. The idea is that they overlap, right? The idea is that the sheets overlap once we're done. So that if anything happened and the first sheet unravels, that they don't all unravel on the same line and the body is exposed. So that they're not placed directly one over the top of the other, but they're kind of offset. And then once we pull one over, right, and tuck it, and we pull the other one over to the other side and tuck it like that, so that they're overlapping. And that's how he explains it here when he says ثم يرد طرف العليا على الجانب الأيسر, like that, right? The idea is that it doesn't unravel, and if it does happen to unravel, that the body doesn't become exposed. After that happens, we've done all 3 sheets, and there's some extra. Anything extra, he says, وَيَجْعَلُ أَكْثَرَ الْفَاضِلِ عِنْدَ رَأْسِهِ, that any extra should be placed or gathered at the head of the body. طيب. All that's on page 65. I'll let you know when we're going to 66. طيب. For a visual of that part, you should go look at the video, because we had somebody up here, even though he didn't. Did he wrap him? He didn't wrap him, did he? He didn't actually wrap him at the clinic when we did the Janazah workshop. He didn't put the sheet on him. Yeah. He put the sheet on him? Oh, yeah. I thought he did. All right. Yeah, look at the video. Will give you a better visual. But the idea is that they overlap so that if anything happens, the person is not exposed. طيب. He moves on with Sunnah limra'atin khamsatu athwabin. It's recommended for a woman to be wrapped in not 3, but 5. 5 sheets or 5 garments, we'll say. Let's say 5 garments, not necessarily sheets. They say the first one, that she's wrapped in an izar. The izar that we know. We know the izar, right? What does the izar cover? The bottom portion. Like that she's wrapped in the izar and a khimar. Right? A khimar. And qamis. What's the benefit of all this? The cover. Anything happen, we do not want the woman to be exposed, even after she's dead. Even after she's deceased and we bury her and we wash her, at no time do we want any of the odor to become exposed. So they say it's better to, she doesn't have to be. Again, the word that's used is recommended. What's the obligation? 5? 5 is recommended. Hmm. 1 sheet is obligatory to make sure that the odor is covered for the man and woman. But if anything after that is the recommendation. So those are the first 3 garments, and then after that, he says, well, lafafatan. Let's just say the lafafatan are the 2 shrouds itself. So she has a khimar, she has an izar, she has like a shirt, right? And on top of that, we're going to do the same thing with the sheets. So if anything happens and the sheets unravel, anything happens, it gets snagged, that and they unravel, that she's still covered. Her body is still covered. So yeah, he says, well, saghira, a smaller girl that has not reached the level of puberty, right? That she should be wrapped in a shirt and 2 garments, or 2. We call them shrouds. Let's use shrouds. 2 shrouds. Or do we call the whole thing a shroud? Let's say sheets to be a little more specific. The shroud may be considered everything. 2 sheets, right? Which knocks the female that has not reached the age of puberty down to, the recommendation for her would be 3 sheets, right? Because they didn't mention the khimar, and they didn't mention the izar for the girl who didn't reach the age of puberty. So yeah. He says at the end, وَالْوَاجِبُ ثَوْبٌ يَسْرُ جَمِيعَ الْمَيِّتِ. What's obligatory is that 1 piece of cloth is used, 1 garment is used to make sure that the body is wrapped completely. That's the obligation, that the body is wrapped up completely. Anything after 1 is recommended to do. Which, if we can, we should. We should do what's recommended to do. But for numerous reasons, a person may be wrapped in 1 garment. It could be numerous reasons, right? If that happens, the point is, if that happens and a person is not wrapped in 3, a sister, she goes to wash another sister, she gets there, they started the wrapping already. Once she gets there, they say, what? We only wrapped her 3 times. Or they don't have a khimar on. They don't have one of the things mentioned. It's not something to get crazy about. Go up and cause a whole big thing. First, find out the reason. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they do know, but there's another reason for them not doing it. Maybe. At the end of the day, as long as she's totally wrapped once, that's enough. That's sufficient. Tayyib. Now he moves to the salat al-janazah. And this is a problem. Hopefully, inshallah, the sisters just had a whole workshop yesterday, and it was real simple and to the point. The sisters came in and they taught the sisters what to say in the salat al-janazah. What to say after the first takbir, what to say after the second takbir, what to say after the third takbir, what to say after the fourth takbir. They gave them printouts to take home with them and everything. Alhamdulillah. May Allah reward them. Because we have to understand the benefit of the janazah prayer is that the musallin, the people, are trying to make intercession for the person by way of dua. We all come to pray and ask for the person's forgiveness, right? We come as the person can't ask for forgiveness any longer. That's done with, right? So what do the Muslims do? The Muslims come to ask Allah to forgive them and pardon them on behalf of the deceased, right? That's the point. So more importantly, the people that come to pray need to know what to say and what to do, not just show up. Like, we got a problem now. We have a problem. People just showing up. People buy new clothes, come to the janazah, don't know what to do. Never prayed janazah in their life, and it's the first time they're there to pray janazah, and so on and so forth. So now, like we said last class, we got to explain to people right now what to do, and that's really, realistically, it's not realistic for a person to learn everything to say in the janazah right now, unless they already know everything to say and they just don't know where it goes. But generally, that's not the place for ta'lim, to be learning how to pray janazah prayer. People dying every day. So this is information that we should have, like this should be standard information that we know. So now the next section, which is at the bottom of 65, I think, and the English starts on the top of 66. The obligation for the funeral prayer. He says, تسقط الصلاة عليه be mukallaf. Number one, what he didn't mention is Salat al-Janazah is fard kifaya. Fard kifaya, which means somebody has to do it. Somebody from amongst the Muslims has to carry it out. And if they don't, the Muslims in that area who are able to do it and didn't do it, nobody did anything, they all get a sin. Fard kifaya, a communal obligation. Somebody from the community got to step up and pray Janazah over the Muslim. Do all of the Muslims have to go to the Janazah prayer? Every single Muslim in the area have to be at every single Janazah? No. But somebody has to pray over the deceased Muslim. That's called Fard Kifaya. And if none of us do it, then we're all sinful. So he says, firstly, that the obligation of praying the Janazah prayer over a Muslim, the obligation is lifted off of everybody as long as one person goes to pray. As long as one Muslim goes and prays it or prays the Janazah prayer for the person, that the obligation is lifted off the rest of the people. Clear? One person, man, woman, either one. That person has to be, as it says, mukallaf. And this word came up before Salat and Kitab al-Salat, mukallaf. Anybody know mukallaf? Mukallaf? If we say mukallaf, mukallaf has two descriptions, right? The mukallaf is the one who reached the age of puberty and they have their sanity, right? They reach the age of puberty and they have their sanity. They describe with one word, mukallaf. So if one person, one Muslim that prays a Janazah prayer for when such and such dies, removes the obligation from the rest of the people. Clear? That's Fard Kifaya. That's what Fard Kifaya means. So the obligation is in what one person has to carry it out. And if not, everyone who was there, whoever was able to do it, you people are able to do it, the Muslims don't do it, everybody gets sin. Everyone is sinful for that, for not carrying out their action. And there are other things that also take the ruling of being Fard Kifaya. طيب, he says, what to send jama'ah is recommended for the jama'ah to pray the janazah based on the hadith of the virtue of the people. In some hadith say, if how many? Anybody know? The number of Muslims that need to come to pray? It's two narrations, huh? What is that? No, the hadith mention a specific number, and it's not one, but it says 40. One says 40 Muslims, and the other narration says 100 Muslims. Hadith here is in Sahih Muslim. Hadith Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. But the Prophet ﷺ said, ما من رجل مسلم يموت فيقوم على جنازته 40 رجلا لا يشركون بالله شيئا إلا شفعهم. That the Prophet ﷺ said, there's no Muslim who dies and 40 people, 40 men come to his janazah. Not just come. Then he gave a description that those 40 people that come, la yushrikuna billahi shay'an, they are not people who commit shirk. They're not people who commit shirk, right? He says, illa shafa'ahum, that they will be able to intercede on the person's behalf, the dua that they make for the person. Now imagine people showing up and they're people of shirk. Then it la yanfa. Imagine people show up, they don't even know what they're showing up for. Some people just show up out of respect. Like the old, well, I'm saying, a lot of non-Muslims, it's a sign of respect to come to a person's funeral, period. You might not even know the person who died, but you know a family member. So they feel like, out of respect, somebody has to show their face at the funeral. Some of us carry that over into Islam. So we just think we got to show up. Don't know what to do, what to say, didn't even know I had to do anything, but I at least got to show up, right? The benefit of the janazah prayer is making dua for the person, for the deceased. So one narration says 40, and the other narration says 100. So they say the recommendation is for the jama'ah. It's recommended for the jama'ah. And of course, the bigger, the more people, then the better. We hope it's a better chance for the person to be forgiven. You got more people. The idea is the more people, the more Muslims come, the more people are making dua. The more people in the janazah, staying in the janazah. That means the more people are praying for the person. So that's the idea. This is why it's recommended for the jama'ah. طيب. And he didn't mention other things in here. It's something that we always see a lot at the janazah. He didn't mention anything about the when we line up for the prayer, that it should be what? 3 rows, right? Should be 3 rows. Nah, but a lot of people are real serious at the janazah about making 3 rows. Like a lot of things we take real personal, as if it's not 3 rows, it's going to affect the whole prayer, right? And a lot of times sometimes it's really out of place, the level of harshness that we use in the wrong time. A lot of times, not the time for that. Or it's non-Muslims standing around, and the way we address the non-Muslims at that time, it's not. We got to use hikmah. Y'all got to move. That's their son. Or I'm saying, even if they're not Muslim, that's their son. That's their nephew. They raised the sister. They raised the brother. Y'all got to move. Like, we got to have some adab talking to people. Number one. Number two, what type of da'wah is that for a non-Muslim? And we talking to them, and this their family member that they've been knowing all their life. They just met you today. Just because you conducting something doesn't mean that removes their feelings and that removes their relationship with the person. They're gonna get their haq. All the Muslims here, we won't pray over them. It's a way to speak to the non-Muslim and ask them to step aside. Even before the prayer, before we get all the way there, it should be known that what's getting ready to happen. And then if new people show up at that point that they didn't hear the first announcement, there's a way to make an announcement where it's respectable and it's not taken out of context. So the recommendation, the sunnah is the jama'ah, so that more people can make dua for the deceased. And again, he didn't mention anything about the rows. It should be 3 rows if possible. But since he didn't mention it, we'll leave it. طيب. وقيام إمام منفردا عند صدر رجل ووسط امرأة. That the imam, whoever leads the janazah prayer, becomes, in that case, the imam. Whoever leads the janazah prayer in that case, brother, you become the imam. And this is not just for imams of masjids, and anybody who leads a janazah prayer becomes the imam of that prayer. It's not just you got to be a sheikh and you got to be, no. What happens is, again, a family member calls you because they know you're a Muslim and they don't know any other Muslims, and you're his friend or you're her friend. They ask you to set up everything. I know they were Muslim. I don't know how y'all do y'all stuff. Can you set it up for me? Right? What we do, we call whoever we call, right? Hopefully the people that we call and know what they're doing. That's the assumption. We call people who we assume know what they're doing. Because we assume they know what they're doing, doesn't mean that they know what they're doing now. But we have good thoughts. We assume that people know what they're doing. Alhamdulillah, we call the people who we know, right? Whoever is designated to lead the janazah prayer becomes the imam of the prayer, just like the salat. You don't have to be the imam of the masjid. You're the imam for that salat that you lead. طيب. He says the imam should stand. If we're praying over a brother, the imam should stand in the sadr, at the chest of the man. And some of the ulama say at his head, towards the head. So it's between the chest and the head if we're praying over a male. Clear? If we're praying over a male. And for a female, towards the middle of her body. Towards the middle of her body. طيب. We'll get to that later, inshallah. طيب. So now we're lining up, and it's a male we praying over. So we praying, as the author says, you pray at the sadr, at his chest. Meaning this is the body in front of us. The man, you praying over the body, you're going to stand right towards the chest, lined up with the chest. And some of the scholars say that you can line up towards the male's head. And the woman further down towards the waist, towards the middle of the body. It says, ثُمَّ يُكَبِّرُ أَرْبَعًا. Then we do 4 takbirat. 4, and this is another thing, that we say the word takbirat, the assumption is that people know what that means, right? We assume, the assumption is that everybody knows what a takbirah is. Does anybody not know what a takbirah is? Takbirah? Takbir is to say, the statement, Allahu Akbar, is takbir, right? That's the statement. We say, the opening takbir of the salat, takbiratul ihram, the opening takbir is Allahu Akbar. The statement, Allahu Akbar. Not the raising of the hand is not the takbirah. Tayyib, the statement, Allahu Akbar, is the takbirah. Tayyib, same thing here. He says, yukabbiru arba'an. We're going to say 4 takbirat. We're going to say Allahu Akbar 4 times. And this is the thing, this is exactly what we said at the beginning of Janazah. Because they say, yo, you got to let the people know how to pray the Janazah prayer. And for real, it's not the time for that. But, okay. So we're going to turn around, we're going to say to people, we're going to pray 4 takbirat, and then we're going to explain exactly what we're going to say right now. After the first takbirah, after the first time we say Allahu Akbar, he says, يقرأ بعد الأولى والتعوذ الفاتحة بلا استفتاح. We're going to say Allahu Akbar and A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem and recite Al-Fatiha. We're not going to say the opening dua that we say in the salah. No, not in the janazah. Bila istiftah. And this is important because throughout the janazah prayer, things are shortened. And that's the benefit. That's one of the benefits, as they explain. Part of the benefit, or they say the janazah is built on mabniya ala takhfif, on lessening and bringing it down and shortening things, right? Just like when we travel. The travel and prayer is built on takhfif. You shorten the dhuhr, you shorten the asr, you shorten the isha. Right? The janazah prayer is short. So we're not doing the istiftah, right? In reality, we're not rushing the salat, but the procedure, the process in general is a fast process, right? Everything surrounding the janazah in general, it is not rushed, meaning we're not going to do what we're supposed to do, but it happens quick. So we might have restrictions on us here, but if a person dies, like in Mecca, when people die, they get buried the next day, a lot of them. They get buried the next day. He died today, it's janazah tomorrow after Asr. Right? So in general, the procedure is fast. Even for us, if we bury people, if state requirements and all that is allowed, if you bury people in 2 days or 3 days, for us, that's fast in our society. You know what I'm saying? If you did 1 day, they might think you crazy. If you buried a person like the next day, yeah, like what's going on? They think something fishy going on. So even 3 days is considered fast. Let's just say 4 days. That's still fast. Sometimes people don't get buried for 2 weeks. Week and a half, 2 weeks, people flying in and all that kind of stuff, right? So even 3 days, 4 days is still generally for our society considered to be fast. So even here, without the opening dua, that we're saying the takbirah, Allahu Akbar, A'udhu Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajeem, and then reading Surah Al-Fatiha, right? طيب. He says, وَيُصَلِّ عَلَى النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم بعد الثانية. And then you give, after we finish Al-Fatiha, you want to say Allahu Akbar. That's the second takbirah. It's the second time we say Allahu Akbar. And then we're going to read the salams that we say in the tashahhud, the last tashahhud. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad, kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim. We're going to say that after the second takbirah. Now, realistically, y'all, if we line up the prayer janazah right now, how are you supposed to tell somebody all of this right now? You're just saying it just to, unless they already know it. And the assumption is we're going to say in the salams on the Prophet something like we're doing the Ibrahim. We assume that the people know what the Ibrahim, we assume that they know that title, what it refers to. It's an assumption. So the benefit, the point is that we need to know this stuff before, like now, because we might have to pray janazah tomorrow or the next day or on a Monday or the janazah is Tuesday. We can't wait till Tuesday and then show up and think we're going to learn how to do everything. And that is going to be as good as perfect as it needs to be, as perfect as it needs to be from our side. طيب, so after the second takbirah, that we send the salams like we do during the salat in the last tashahhud. طيب, he says after that, وَيَدْعُو بَعْدَ الثَّالِثَةِ. After the third takbirah, so we already said Allahu Akbar, right? We said أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وَالشَّارَ الْفَاتِحَةِ Allahu Akbar اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد, right to the end. Third takbirah, Allahu Akbar. In this takbirah, as he says, وَيَدْعُو بَعْدَ الثَّالِثَةِ, that in this one we make the dua specifically for the deceased. Specifically for the deceased. I forgot the book, man. The black book. Oh, here we go. Here it is. In this book, as he doesn't say it here in the metin, in the book itself. Oh, yes, he does. I'm sorry. He says after that, he says, "Well, afdalu shay'in mimma warad." The best dua to make after the third takbirah is was reported on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The best dua to make is the dua that we have, and it's in this book. That's why I mentioned this book specifically, if people want to look it up. The dua that the Prophet ﷺ would make. And it's on page 120. It starts on page 127. If you have the black Fortress of the Muslim on page 127, and it goes from 127 to 129. Or 130, I'm sorry, because 130 has the dua for the children when a child dies. So the best dua, as they say, is the dua that has been narrated from the Prophet ﷺ. Now the question is, what's the benefit of sticking to the dua that the Prophet ﷺ said in the Janazah prayer? Because you can say other duas. It's not restricted to these. It's not like if you don't say the dua in here that it's not correct. The Janazah prayer is not correct. But they say it's better, they say, it's afdal, it's better to say the dua that the Prophet ﷺ said. And some have said that you say the best thing that you can think of at that time. Some say you can say that. But they say that the best dua is what we have reported from the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Does anybody know why? What's the benefit of sticking to? Yes. G, to preserve that sunnah, to protect that sunnah from being abandoned. Okay, what else? More of a chance of it being accepted. Tayyib, what else? If there was a better dua for that time, then he would have said it. Of course, all of these are right. It's the best thing you can say is what the Prophet ﷺ said. Tayyib, a person, mathalan, they don't know the dua. Right? A person doesn't know the dua. He says afdal because it's not restricted to this dua. But one of the reasons they say, because in the dua, not just this one now, in the dua of the Prophet ﷺ is a protection from saying anything incorrect, from making dua for something that you shouldn't be making dua for. Clear? Some people make dua for bad things. Some people ask Allah for something, and it's haram. They shouldn't be asking. Like, you know what I'm saying? So they ask Allah for something that they shouldn't be asking for, period. In these du'as that the Prophet ﷺ told us, we know we're protected from that. We know we're protected from saying anything that would be displeasing to Allah. And it's possible that we make a du'a and we slip. And we ask for something that we shouldn't be asking for. Or we say something that we shouldn't be saying in the du'a. We say something that's not appropriate to be saying in the du'a. It's possible. But if we stick to what the Prophet ﷺ taught us, then that saves us from that type of slip also. Clear? Along with everything else that y'all said. So he says, well, afdal. He says, well, afdal bi shay'in mimma warad. And it's a couple different things that's narrated on the Prophet ﷺ, and from them are the ones on page 127, I think it is. If you have this, you should go look at it. Starts on 127. Starts on 127. It's the Arabic, the transliteration, and the English. Arabic, the transliteration, and the English. We ain't gonna get into that. No. We want to strive for the Arabic, y'all. The English is there if we need, so we can know what we're saying also. We don't want to be dependent on transliterations. If we don't know what transliterations is, it's the one that's written ALLAHUMMA, like all that kind of stuff. We want to try to get away from that. But the only way you get away from that is learning Arabic. That's all. You gotta learn Arabic. You gotta learn to read Arabic. And inshallah, it removes you from being in that type of thing. You gotta depend on that because none of that, those transliterations are not like standard. They switch, they change based on the person who wrote it. That's why some people use a U for Omar and some people use a O for Omar. So when I say Omar, it sounds to me, it sounds like an O, but it sounds to you like a U. Who's right and who's wrong? There's nothing wrong with it. But I found that Medina book, a lot of times for people coming out of level 1, sometimes it's a little bit over their head. Medina book is technical, real technical. And if you just learn to read, it can be a little bit sometimes. But inshallah, we get to it. So he says the best thing is what the Prophet ﷺ narrated. What was narrated on the Prophet ﷺ. He mentions a couple of hadith here. Allahumma ighfir li hayyina wa mayyitina wa shahidina wa ghaibina wa saghirina wa kabirina wa dhakrina wa unthana. The hadith all the way to the end of the dua. Now there's 2 du'as here. As the ulama explained, one of them is one is considered to be general, and then the other dua is a little more specific. Either way, the point is after the 3rd takbirah, the dua is for the deceased, and we should. It's not a condition, but we should know the person's name, right? It would be better to know their name, at least, right? It's a little more personal if you know the person's name. If we didn't know the person's name, we want to at least know if we was praying over a male or a female, right? At the least, we want to at least know that. So he mentions 2 of the du'as here that, again, they can be found in that book, in Fortress of the Muslim. It says now, وَإِنْ كَانَ صَغِيرًا أَوْ مَجْنُونًا. If the person is صغير, young. When they say young here, they mean has not reached the age of puberty. Okay? If the deceased has not reached the age of puberty, or if the deceased is Majnoon, which is, what's Majnoon, y'all? Insane. It says here, if the deceased here, it says here, y'all, if the deceased is a minor or insane, then they say something else, and there's a special dua. What's a minor to us? Somebody under the age of 18 is a minor to us. To us, under the age of 18 would be considered a minor. But in reality, the saghir here is the child who has not reached the age of puberty. Huh? No, if they didn't reach puberty yet, they could be, what's the age of puberty? At the least, the age of puberty is what? At the latest. At the latest. Not later than that. 15. There you go, 15. Of course, the signs of puberty could come before that. The ulama say by 15, khalas. They don't have, if the child doesn't have any signs of puberty, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, no, that's it, khalas. Valid. Right? So if a child has not reached the age of puberty, that means what? And they died before they reached the age of puberty. This is a question now. Put your thinking caps on. Because now at this point, this is what's happening. If the child didn't reach the age of puberty and we pray Janazah for the child, we're not praying for the child. We're praying for the parents. Why aren't we praying for the child? The child is not accountable for their sins. The pen is lifted until the person reaches puberty. So it's as if what? The child that has not reached puberty doesn't have anything written from sins for him, right? To be forgiven for. So in that case, if the child, people say that all the time, we got a lot of terminology we got. Like, come give Fulan his rights, give my cousin his rights, and the rights of this one and this one. Okay, those rights are for specific people with a specific type of description that meet certain requirements. They have rights. Like in this case, the child who didn't reach puberty, that the pen is lifted from them until they reach puberty. So in that case, the dua is for the parents. And this is on, that's why the last dua in the fortress on page 130, I'm sorry. Is it 130? Yeah, I'm sorry, 131. Yeah, 131. It says invocation for a child in the funeral prayer. All right, there you are. On page 131. That is because what? The child did not reach the age of puberty. If the child reached the age of puberty, then what? We make dua for the deceased. So yeah, that's the idea. So he says if the child is either A, Saghir, didn't reach the age of puberty, or B, Majnoon. Why aren't we making dua specifically for the Majnoon, for the one who is insane? Hey, the pen is also lifted. They're not accountable for their actions. Yes. If the child is an orphan. If the child is an orphan? Okay. Why not? Oh, if the child is an orphan. Well, if you look at the wording of the dua, it doesn't necessitate that you know the parents' names. Right? That's why it says their parents. Whoever their parents are, wherever they are, right? That's the most you can do. Even if they're an orphan in a case like that, the most you can do is make dua for the parents. Doesn't mean you can't make dua for the child, but it's better to make dua for the parents. The pen is lifted from the child. So we hope for, as the Prophet ﷺ explained to us. Tell you, if you don't know who the parents are, it's not a necessity that we know the name of the parents of the deceased. It's not a necessity. It's not that we shouldn't. If we should want to know, we want to know as much information as the person we're ready to pray on over as possible, so that we can make the prayers specifically for this person, right? If we can get their family member, their mother and father, if we want to know that, so we can make dua specifically for them. If we didn't know any of that, let's just say you're riding, you're on your way home, and you see the masjid is packed, and you pull over, say it looks like a janazah, you just get out and pray, and when you line up, as soon as you get out there, they takbir. They say Allahu Akbar. You don't know who you're praying on. Right? It's not a condition for the salat to be accepted from you that you have to know the person's name. Like I always say all the time, and the Kaaba is always a janazah after every salat. After every salat is a janazah prayer. Right? So before they did the construction, you used to be able to double park outside the Kaaba, like outside the Haram. You double park your car, not running, but double park. They call it then. You can double park outside, go in, pray Dhuhr. After you pray Dhuhr, you can't leave your car sitting there. You pray Dhuhr at the Kaaba. On your way out, they call for the janazah. You could be walking out. They say Allahu Akbar. You know that's a janazah prayer. You turn around, you get in the rank, you just pray janazah over a person, then keep going. It's not a condition that you have to know every person's name or even the parent's name, but they'll let you know. They'll say Salah ala tifl yarhamukumullah. They'll make an announcement, like loud over the loudspeaker. We get ready to pray janazah on the child, to let you know what you might to use that dua. We want to make dua for the child's parents. Or if it's a man or a woman, they'll say Salah ala imra'ah. We're making Salat janazah over, we're praying over a woman. They don't necessarily mention the name every time, right? So it's not a condition for the name to be known. Tayyib. He says, so that's the dua for the child if that's the case. He says, وَيَقِفُ بَعْدَ الرَّابِعَةِ قَلِيلًا وَيُسَلِّمُ. He says that after So that's the third takbirah. The third time we said Allahu Akbar was the dua for the deceased, right? Whether it's a man, woman, or child. طيب. And then the fourth takbirah, we say Allahu Akbar. He says, وَيَقِفُوا قَلِيلًا. And after that fourth takbirah, Allahu Akbar, that a person stands, the imam stands, and he pauses for a minute. In that pause, he says he pauses for a minute, and then he gives the tasneem, wa yusallim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Some say, because you might read some books on the Janazah prayer, and some say you don't say anything after the fourth. You just pause for a minute, right? There's a gap, and then the person gives the tasneem. And some of them, the Jamhur, most of them say that you make dua again after the fourth, right? Either way, it's a gap, and it's only four, and it won't be like long extended. But sometimes, and I'm saying this because it happens, sometimes the person leading the salat might make dua after the fourth takbirah. So that means it's going to be longer than usual. People used to say Allahu Akbar, and after the fourth one, Allahu Akbar, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So if the brother makes if he makes dua after the fourth, after the salat, people got a problem now. Man, that Jones too long after the fourth. I don't know what he was doing. Jamhur ulama, most of the ulama say you make dua after the fourth. What was you? So we go right to bid'ah. Everything bid'ah. Well, anytime we don't know something is bid'ah. Allah musta'an. Tayyib. He says, well, yusallim. And he doesn't mention, the author here doesn't mention to make dua after the fourth. Right? Because according to the author, what? Apparently you shouldn't make dua after the fourth. And every time you read a book, it means that this is what the author sees to be correct. The person might say, well, which one should we do? Should we make it after the fourth or not? If you make it after the fourth, alhamdulillah. Many of the ulama, most of the ulama say you should. And if you don't, some of the ulama say you don't have to make it after the fourth. Which one is stronger? I'm not like, the strongest is considering the dalil. What does the dalil point to? You have to look at all the evidence, and then that's how they come up with which one is stronger. Not just because this famous sheikh said it, so that must be the strongest, right? Because this sheikh said it, that must be the strongest opinion. No, it's not. It doesn't work like that academically. Like when it comes to real knowledge and ilm, it don't work like that. Your name could be whatever your name is as a scholar. Just because you are who you are doesn't mean you have the strongest opinion on something. The strongest opinion goes back to a whole lot of other things that had to be factored in. So he says, وَيُسَلِّمْ. وَيُسَلِّمْ meaning يُسَلِّمْ تَسْلِيمًا. One time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. طيب. And some say that you do taslimatan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. A lot of us don't know that. So when the brother leading the salat does two taslims, we got balled up. We mad again. Allah understand, yeah.
Also the salat, regular salat, you're supposed to do one taslim. Not saying some people do the salat, taslim one time because he didn't do two. Also, you didn't do two.
I'm not gonna get to that right now. I ain't gonna get into that. طيب. طيب. One taslima. طيب. And some say two. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Some people we're used to. What are we used to? Two. One. طيب. Either one is not la bats. Either way is la bats. But a lot of people are used to one. A lot of people are used to one. And some people are used to two. The problem is, either way, it's not a big deal that we got to argue about it. Number one, it's not like that, right? It's not like it's going to be, it's not like it's going to invalidate the Janazah prayer because he did two, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And it's not like because he only did one to the right, it's going to invalidate the prayer. So yeah. Point being is if we see those things, we need to understand, okay, it's possible that person believes that it's strong, it's better to do too. If they do, alhamdulillah. It's not like they made it up. It's not like the one leading the salat made that up himself. The scholars already talked about that. The scholars already discussed it. Which one is better? So it's not an issue that we should fall out about. And in the explanation, Sheikh, you mentioned the nice benefit, which is important. And that's why I asked the question, which one are we used to? He says in the beginning of the salat, where he says, well, you kabbiru arba'in. He said, how many takbirs we gonna make? 4. He says, وهو المشهور والذي عليه العمل وهو المجمع عليه. Everybody agrees that you can make 4 takbirat. 4, Allahu Akbar, we do it 4 times. He says, وَأَمَّا مَا زَادَ عَنِ الْأَرْبَعِ فَمُخْتَلِفْ فِيهِ. Whatever goes above 4 takbirat, anything after that, the scholars differ on if you can do that or not. What they agree on? 4. They differ on what? Anything after 4 is khilafah. Everybody with me? What's safer? 4 is safe. If somebody did 5, you prayed Janazah and the brother did 5 takbirat. Did I? I can't come down here no more. Astaghfirullah. That's what I'm getting to. It's not that deep. You don't know. I don't know the lil and the khilaf. All I know is now I know, okay, some of the scholars say you can do 5. Is that a strong opinion? I don't know. Right? It's not, but does the discussion itself exist? Or is the brother leading the salat don't know what he's doing? He don't know what he's doing. He did 5 takbirat. Or he did 7. He don't know what he's doing. The discussion is, does the discussion of more than saying Allahu Akbar 4 times in the janazah, does that discussion even exist in the books of the scholars? The discussion is there already. So it's nothing that we got to go crazy about and say stuff like, because that's where we go. I ain't praying down here no more. Right? We don't have to go that far because the discussion is already there. It's not that, as we say, it ain't that deep. Right? Because we don't know something don't mean it doesn't exist. And the more you learn, the more you see that. I never knew that. Yeah, well, you don't know a lot of stuff. That's what you come to find out. The more you learn, the more you come to find out how much you don't know. So the discussion is already there. What the point of this was, he said, the Muslim la yabhath an ash-shubuhat wal mukhalafat. That we shouldn't just try to go with the thing that's just to be different. We shouldn't do stuff just to be different. Now, before today, how many people knew about 5 takbirat? All right, tell you. So the point is, we don't have to be different. You don't leave here today, somebody you need to start, no, this do 5 takbirat. For what? We're not that type of people to cause confusion. And that's what he says. And it's not in this issue. He says, بَلْيَكْتَفِي بِمَا عَلَيْهِ الْعَمَلِ فِي الْبَلَدِ. Just do what the people in your locale are used to, so that you don't confuse people. Oh, the sister's got a question. Just do what's in your locale that the people are used to, so that you don't cause confusion. And now after the janazah, instead of everybody focusing on going to the burial, everybody arguing about the imam did 5 takbirat. I don't know if the salah valid or not. Let's pray over. Nah, he dropped the gun. Some brothers will literally take it that far. We gotta pray over, and they'll pray the whole janazah prayer, step off on the side, and then they pray a whole another janazah prayer. Don't care about the family, none of that. Haq is haq, right? It's not that deep. He says, and that's why he says, do what's normal in your locale so that you don't cause confusion. And that's from having fiqh. Tayyib. We do this in there because it's the last line here. He says, and lastly, وَيَرْفَعُ يَدَيْهِ مَعَ كُلِّ تَكْبِيرًا. And it's recommended to raise the hands every time we say Allahu Akbar. Every time we say Allahu Akbar is what? Recommended to raise the hands. Allahu Akbar. That means we raise them how many times? 4. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Right? Now, if somebody does 5, then of course everything goes like that. But he says it's recommended. So what happens when the imam leading the janazah prayer, he doesn't raise his hands? It's recommended. So what does that mean for the salat? It's still valid. That means the imam did what? He left off what? A sunnah. Does leaving off a sunnah invalidate the prayer? No. You know how we go. We go from 0 to 1,000. Did I? They go right. That's how we do. That's our problem. A lot we go straight to the last, and then I ain't praying down here no more. Why they let him lead the salat anyway? Where he pray at? What's he doing? What is it? And then we start, Salafi. Now we got all this. Everybody's distracted from focusing on what we're here for, which is praying for the deceased. And we worried about something totally that really has nothing to do with nothing right now. Right? And that's the benefit of knowledge. Whoa, sisters. Hey. Function as a prayer, and there's one within the range with false lashes, false nails, and false hair hanging out of. Oh man, Allah help us, man. Allah help us. I mean, when performing the Janazah prayer, and there is one within the rank with false lashes, false nails, and false hair hanging out of the khimar, do you ask one to leave the rank? And if so, how do you ask one to leave the rank? Huh. If that's the case, if they like that there, y'all, then apparently what? They don't know what they're doing. Apparently, the sister doesn't know. All right? If her hair is hanging out of her khimar, because our problem with our sisters, Allah Muslim, may Allah forgive us and guide the sisters, man. The khimar sisters is supposed to cover your hair. This the joint, you know how where they joint back, they got the little baby gel and the little baby hair showing. That's not from modesty, sisters. Not that the men not supposed to see that. I don't know where that came from. You know, we trendy though. We're trendy, Philly. We trendy. So whoever started it, it's a bad sunnah to start. It's not a good sunnah to start. And people jump on board. The men are not supposed to see any of your hair. The look, how to Shayla lay and all that's secondary to what's supposed to be covered. Cover properly first, and if it lay good, alhamdulillah. If it lay good, most important part is to make sure you cover properly so that we're not gaining those sins up looking good. Yeah, you sharp, but you gaining a bunch of sayyat at the same time. You're getting a bunch of sins on yourself every day going out the house like that. So if the sister's like that and she's at the janazah, apparently she doesn't know. And if she doesn't know, that means what? You need to deal with her gently. She don't know. Pull her to the side. I wouldn't tell her to leave the prayer. I would honestly, you might want to pull it like to the edge of the rank. You might want to, you know what I'm saying? You gotta use hikmah, man. At the end of the day, you have to use wisdom. Everything has a time and a place. She's Muslim. Okay, what we do know is this. If you're in the rank as a Muslim, anybody, if we're praying a salah and you're in the rank, if she got on fingernails, then apparently, what? Apparently she's not a wudu, right? Maybe she's got the halal polish. They say they got halal polish, yeah. Is that what it says? Oh, false nails. Well, all right. Knowing all of that, then you know her level. You got to be gentle with her, and you know. Mm-hmm.
And they recover, you know, same way the sister mentions, right?
Mm.
Sometimes people don't know, they think they have to come covered, and they don't be Muslim.
Oh, and they don't be Muslim. But we're assuming this person Muslim. But some of the non-Muslims come to the janazah and they believe that they can't come to a janazah unless they're like fully covered, like a Muslim. So sometimes they might not be Muslim, but they put on a scarf. So yeah, out of respect, right? Because like they might have people who tell them, the Muslims might tell them, when you come dress modest. And they tell them, don't wear, you know what I mean? Tell them what not to wear. Well, sometimes, yeah, sometimes they know it's out of pocket. They want to blend. They don't want to be up like an eyeball. So they might cover all the way up. Not just, they might cover with a khimar and wrap it up. And they might not be Muslim. But it might be a Muslim woman who comes to the prayer like this. Even if she came like that, it shows she don't know what she's doing. So in that case, you need to deal with her gently. Rifq. Have some softness. You ain't got to scream or it's not a bashing session at that point. That might be her sister. It could be her brother. It could be anybody. And apparently, by the looks of it, she doesn't know. So that's a opportunity to teach somebody and not to bash somebody. What if the child mother is not Muslim? Or the parents are not Muslim, but the child is. What if you don't know the parent's name? What if the child's mother is not Muslim? Or the parents are not Muslim, but the child is? What if you don't know the parent's name? Well, we spoke about that. If you don't know the parents' names, then it's not a condition to know the parent's name to make dua for them. Because as the hadith says, the narration says, waliday, the two parents. So it's not a condition. If the parents are not Muslim, if the if the parents are not Muslim and the child is, Allahu A'lam. At the least, you can make dua for the child at the least. But if the parents are not Muslim, Allahu A'lam. Sis got 1, 2, 3. MashaAllah. Can a non-Muslim assist with the burial or prayer, although it's can a non-Muslim assist with the burial or prayer, although it's family? Maybe she's saying if it's family. The family of the deceased is a non-Muslim. And the non-Muslim, they're at the burial. The job of burying the Muslims is on who? The Muslims bury Muslims. Who buries the non-Muslims? Non-Muslims. What if there's nobody to bury the non-Muslim? Then the Muslims bury the non-Muslim. In this case, like we see a lot, there are a lot of Muslims standing around, and there's some non-Muslims. There's some non-Muslims, family members that want to assist. Is it sunnah for that to happen? Is that recommended to let non-Muslims know? What we going? Is this for a non-Muslim to bury the Muslims?
I think the answer is no.
No, yeah. No, the Muslims bury Muslims. The Janazah, the whole, the Janazah prayer is farad kifaya. It's on the Muslims to do it. Now we got a situation where it's non-Muslims here and they want to help. In this case, you got to use hikmah. Number one, the way we talk to people is big. We talking to people at a graveyard, they burying their family member, and we talking to them like, you know what I'm saying, like they owe us something. Y'all can't be over here. Y'all gotta move over some so we can do this. With no type of respect and for the brother or the sister. That's his mother or his father. Yeah, they're not Muslim. That's his mother and father. You gotta have some respect for the people, at the least. So what do? We do. Number one, we should have spoke about that previously. Number two, if that's the case, we speak about it again in a nice way. What if they don't listen to us and they keep throwing the dirt? Keep throwing it, alhamdulillah. We did our job. We're not going to start getting into no fighting argument with people, family members, because they want to help bury their. We're not going to, that's not even, everybody with me? You deliver the message. This burial, this prayer is for the Muslims. For the people who don't know, it's the way you word things. As they say, it ain't about what you say, but it's how you say it. And the same thing when it comes to burial. You explain it to them. If they say, it's emotional time, I ain't going with them. I'm burying my son. And they start throwing dirt, they grab a shovel. Hey, what we going to do? Snatch the shovel out the hand? We're not going to go that far and cause a bigger problem. If you are Muslim but not covered, meaning a woman, and they want to be part of the rank, do you tell them to step back? If so, what do you say? She's a Muslim, she's not covered. And she wants to pray. I mean, she's like the first sister, y'all. Sisters, at the least, y'all gotta be like, it's okay. It's okay to be nice to people, even if they did wrong. It's okay to be nice to people, even if they are 100% wrong. Because a person's 100% wrong, don't mean we have to be ignorant and belligerent. That's for you. We don't have to be belligerent because somebody is wrong. They did wrong, but that don't mean we got to behave and come out of character. So if she's not covered, at the least, let's say you spoke to the sister and she doesn't move because that's her cousin and we come up together and I don't even know you and you don't know him and she doesn't move. At the least what? At the least you said something, and at the least her salah is what? Hers. That's on her. Like she doesn't affect you being covered properly, and the rest of the sisters, all the other Muslims that are there, properly doing what they're supposed to do.
So I heard this part. So, can you ask anybody to move out the line?
I mean, if they shouldn't be there, there's no problem with it. Do you see a problem with it?
Yeah, somebody doesn't have the hour fully covered or learn certain things. I don't know if you can and can't.
The question
advice,
is,
yeah,
yeah,
you gotta step out.
yeah, that's the way to do stuff. Man. You don't want to like, again, we talking about a burial. We talking about like the highest level, one of the highest levels of emotional display you're going to see. It's got to be a time and place for something. You might not need to say nothing. They might snap, and it's a whole nother problem. I'm gonna leave that alone. They've been tripping all day. I ain't saying nothing. She ain't covered. Let her stay in there. That might be the best thing to do. Is it from the sunnah that people that's not sisters not covered properly? No, that none of that's. But we talking about in this situation, what we're doing in front of us, the reality. What we gonna do now?
I was gonna ask, so does that affect the road?
Would it be considered a gap? Hector, even if it's a gap in the row. Does a gap in the row invalidate the prayer? No. Even if it's a gap. Islam is easy. Even if it's a gap, that's not the preferred way to pray. We praying in gaps now for Jummah, right? It's not the preferred way to pray. The preferred way to pray, we all know, hill to hill, shoulder to shoulder. If there's a reason that we don't pray hill to hill, shoulder to shoulder, then alhamdulillah. And here you got a situation, it's death. It's like you're gonna get into an argument about a person messing up a rank. And the reality is them in the rank is not gonna invalidate. It's different if they're gonna invalidate the prayer itself. If it's gonna be something that's gonna it can be overlooked based on the situation, then we have to use wisdom. What if no one for the deceased due to the person's character? What if no one wanted to pray for the deceased due to the person's character, a rapist or a murderer? Like happened a couple years ago. Ain't nobody want to pray over the brother. They went and asked the brother. He said, we ain't praying over him. How we do this? A person has bad reputation. Nobody wants to pray over him. How do we deal with that, y'all? Somebody got to do it. Why? It's Fardu Kifaya. It's a communal obligation. Somebody has to pray over him. Praying over the Muslim is from the rights of a Muslim. Now, that doesn't mean everybody has to pray over him. Or some people might decline. I'm not even showing up there. I don't want nobody thinking I had any attachment to him. Right? Cool. And a lot of the scholars say people who do that a lot of times are people with like position in their communities. Where, for example, everybody know you're a drug dealer. Like he's a rapist, like she said, a murderer. Certain people in the community shouldn't be there. And this is why they wouldn't go. They wouldn't pray over certain people. Right? To stay, I don't want no connection to that. That doesn't mean nobody prays over them. Right? So we're not allowed. If that's the case, then we fall into the rule of the Fardu Kifaya. Nobody prays over them. We all sinful, the Muslims in that area. Right? So we're not allowed just to, because a person, and as the ulama say, the person who had bad reputation, realistically, they're in need of our dua. They need it. They really need it. Not that the other person doesn't, but everybody knows it's possible that the person that's dead, the deceased, they need the prayer and they need it bad, but we don't know they needed that bad because maybe Allah covered their sins. But this person exposed their sins. So everybody knows that this person really needs it. So we're not allowed just to leave off not praying over the Muslim. How would you go about giving the Muslim their rights regarding the Janazah if their spouse is not Muslim? Oh, this is a good one. How would you go about giving the Muslims their right regarding the Janazah if their spouse is not Muslim? That's the importance of having a will, y'all. Number one, having wills written out. Even if your spouse is Muslim. Even if your spouse is a Muslim. If your spouse is not a Muslim, and that's a long discussion, but we're not getting that. If your spouse is not a Muslim, then the problem is what we see it to be. A lot of times we lose control of the situation. But at the least, y'all, at the least, if that's the case, and the spouse doesn't want the other one to be buried as a Muslim, they say, I'm burying them however they want to bury. At the least, that means we're not allowed to do what? They don't allow us to wash the body. They don't allow us to wrap the body, right? They might not allow us to bury the body. But we can still do what? We can still pray. We can still pray without the body here. We can still pray Salat al-Janazah and the body is not here. Salat al-Ghaib. They call it the absentee prayer, meaning the body is absent. The body's not here. So if that's the case, and that's like worst case scenario, that's not like we shooting for that. But if that happens, and we don't want that to happen because we want to do everything the way we're supposed to do it. But worst case scenario, if that happens, then inshallah we can still pray the janazah prayer for the person. How do you determine who should do the prayer? Should one how do you determine who should do the prayer? How do you determine who should lead the prayer, the janazah prayer? Huh? Say it again.
Everybody who knows what to do it. Make sure somebody knows what to do it.
I guess you got to know. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. Make sure they know how to do it.
it should be somebody, sister, that is, qualified to lead the prayer. I guess that's the question. How do you know if a person is qualified to lead the prayer? I guess. You can't really ask a person because you say you know how to lead janazah prayer. You know how they're gonna say yeah. Somebody might say yeah.
You know what to say.
I think I know what to say. They might say yeah. You know what I'm saying? You can ask somebody, and they might say yeah. They know what to say. That's like saying somebody you know Al-Fatiha. They say yeah, I know Al-Fatiha, and then they recite Al-Fatiha. You like shake that ain't Al-Fatiha. You know what I'm saying? They can say you know how to lead janazah prayer. They say yes, I know how to lead the prayer. You know what they're saying? Yeah, I know what to say. It's 4 takbir. You say Allahu Akbar 4 times, and then yeah. They might say, you know what I'm saying? They might know some aspects of it, but they might not be. So in that case, sister, it's better to contact people who janazah committees. I'll leave it like that. The people on janazah committees. There are janazah committees in the city, and I got good thoughts about the janazah committees. I'm assuming, my assumption is the people on the janazah committees across the city, my assumption is they know who knows what. And that's why they designate these people to do it. My assumption is not that all the janazah committees in the city and they don't know what they're doing. No, that's not my assumption of the Muslims. My assumption is good thoughts of the believers. So we have janazah committees. You contact a janazah committee. Our problem is we contacted individuals. So you contact an individual that you see to be decent as a Muslim, and you assume that they know what they're doing, right? But it's better and safer to contact the janazah committees. Therefore, you know that these are people who work together. They have some structure to make sure things get done correctly. Inshallah. Should one all go around saying it to make sure it's correct? No, I wouldn't do that. Go around. People don't like that, sis. Go around. Let me hear your Fatiha real quick. It's going to be a mushkil. If she knows like, what if she knows like, I don't know what this says. It says, what if she, see, I don't know what that says, man. See if you see that. It says, what if you pull one to the side to give sincere advice and that one snaps on you? Come on, y'all. Hold up. Before I read this out loud. Yeah, that's a mushkila. You did your job. You try to pull somebody to the side and tell them what to do. You understand that? Me either. You try to pull somebody to the side and advise them and tell them how to do things, and they tell you, I already know this. I know that already. I already know that. Who you to tell me anything? Who you say? I don't even know. You know, people get an attitude, and you did your job. Now, if they really don't know what they're doing, then that's a different issue. But our job is not to force people to do what we advise them with. You give somebody advice, they can take it or leave it. They don't have to take the advice because you gave it to them. We hope they do, but if they don't, you did your job. You did your obligation. All I do is convey the message. It's not my job to make people accept what I'm saying. And if you pull somebody to the side to give them advice, it's not your job to make them accept what you're saying for them to do exactly the way you tell them to do it. All you could do is advise them and tell them. If they accept it, alhamdulillah. If they say, who you? I'm nobody. I ain't nobody. I'm just saying what you're doing it wrong, but If you want to do it, it's advice. They can accept it, they cannot accept it, right? And it's just like, and that's all we can really do with that. We don't have the ability to force people to follow what we're saying. That all we can do is advise, and that was the job of the prophets and the messengers. To, you understand? I don't know what that says. The job of the prophet and messengers is to deliver the message, not necessarily force people to follow them. Tayyib. We stop there, inshallah, unless there's any questions from the brothers. So they covered everything. Allah Akbar. Tayyib. Next week, we move to, because we already wrapped the body. We washed, we prayed, and we washed, we wrapped, and we prayed. So now we move next week to carrying the body to the actual graveyard. Carrying the body to the actual graveyard, inshallah. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.